I don't know where this is going to go. This is a solo episode with Jake today, and it's the first snowfall here in Calgary on Thanksgiving of 2025. And I've, I don't know, I had this feeling of like, how did I get here? And not in a bad way. It's just that living in Calgary, in Canada, being here and doing what I'm doing, I guess it's not something I ever would have planned. And yet it's exactly where I am, where I want to be, where I should be. Like, I feel good about it. But I found myself just contemplating, I guess, this feeling of I'm finally starting to feel like I'm older than I've been. And maybe that sounds weird to say. It doesn't make sense as I say it. This whole episode here, I'll say too, is just, I'm just riffing off the top of my head. I just sat down and pressed record. But I guess that for so long, I've always felt like I was, I guess, just like a kid. And I mean, I still feel like a bit of a kid, but I think this is now that point in life where I don't feel I have much in common with the generation behind me. I guess for a long time, I would feel that I still had things in common and that the people who were younger than me were, we were still of the same kind of, generation or like group. And now I don't feel that. I feel like I'm firmly in this, I don't know, adulting section of life. And yet I'm still finding myself not knowing what the fuck I'm doing. And I think of my parents at this age too. I'm 34, and they were fresh parents. They've had me for 4 years ish. I guess my brother's a couple years old, and they don't know what the fuck they're doing either. Like, it's kind of hit me that I guess however I feel and whatever I'm going through, everyone else before me has felt and gone through, but it's unique and weird to, like, I guess, to just do it yourself. It's like you can watch videos of like trips or things, but until you go to that place or do that thing yourself, you don't really feel it. And I think it's a cool opportunity in today's world that I can sit down and record what it feels like to be this age. Because I don't think these are things that we do often. Like, I kind of wish I had a recording of my parents talking about them not knowing what the fuck they're doing at this age, because I think it would make me laugh. I think it would be something we could all just connect over and remind ourselves to not take life too seriously, to not plan it, to learn from these moments in the past. I found myself contemplating about my childhood a lot more, thinking of the things that we did and the freedom that I felt. Whether I had it or not is beside the point, but I think as a kid I felt this incredible freedom to just go and be and do. Like I was, I guess, like the world was more of my playground. It was here for me, and I was welcome to play in it, and I was supposed to be here and take up space and exist and enjoy, like, to consume and produce, and like, being alive was not a burden. And it feels like in today's world, it's meant to feel, I don't know if it's meant to, but I guess the byproduct of of everyone talking about how much we have to not use resources or that we're polluting and blah, blah, blah. It's like, it makes me feel like my very existence is a burden to the world. And I know that's not accurate, yet I guess the way it's just angrily thrown around, it's like, you shouldn't be here because the world would be better off, if you weren't disrupting its natural systems or something. And part of me finds that repulsive because I'm like, well, we're part of this earth too. So whatever we do is, quote, natural, if you will. Like, we're earthbound beings. We're from the earth. I don't know. It doesn't make sense. But I guess part of what I've enjoyed now is, I guess through some of my 20s, started to feel that. And it got me really down, towards the end of my 20s. And now breaking in and trying to do something on my own, going out there and, like putting myself out there, working for myself, and especially trying to do it in a kind of creative way. I don't know. I'm entering this era where it feels good to take up space again. I feel that me being alive and doing what I'm doing has a purpose, even if I can't articulate that or express that or justify it. And just realize that you don't need to do any of that. Being here and doing what I'm doing is exactly what I should be, and that's okay. And you shouldn't be made to feel bad about being. Because I don't think I feel that way when I look out and see people. I get frustrated when they, can't drive right or they do something stupid, but I don't feel that person shouldn't be around or be doing what they're doing, or that they're going to have to justify themselves to me or to anyone. It's kind of silly. I think the childhood me loved just exploring and trying things, and being stupid or inconvenient wasn't much of a thought. It was just like, yeah, we're people and we're all different and we're all doing different things, and we're not going to be aware of what's happening with others all the time. And we can't either. We can do our best to try to minimize our, negative impacts on people, but at the same time, extending that generosity and grace of saying, they probably weren't paying attention to me. It's nothing personal. Just shit happens. I say that just because living here in Calgary, I feel that just people have zero situational awareness, and I can find myself getting really frustrated or angry, either trying to drive around or walk around, and just the way people stop in the middle of doorways instead of just off to the side, or they just stop in the middle of a parking lot, or they just change lanes or turn completely across traffic with no regard for anything. And maybe this is a sign of some kind of maturing that I haven't meant to do, but it's happened. I've stopped caring. I used to get really mad about that. I'd get frustrated. I would, like yell in the car if someone was making me angry there. And, there still are moments when I do that, but in general, I've stopped. It just is. It doesn't matter. I can't change it. Whatever frustrating thing that person did has already happened. And that doesn't matter. And I can continue going about my day, and I can choose to feel good instead of choosing to hold on to that moment. I think that's the big thing in my 30s that's felt completely different, is I'm realizing I can choose how I want to feel and what I want to hold on to. I can't choose what's going to happen to me. I can't choose what other people are going to do or not going to do, but I can choose how I want to feel about that, and if I want to hold that moment or let go of it. I think a younger me held on to lots of moments especially through my 20s. And I would take things too personally. So I held a lot of things really close. And now I realize I don't have to hold things. I think part of my obsession with photography is documenting and recording what happens. And so there's a part of my memory that wants to do the same thing with everything that I experience in life. And I realize I don't have to do that. I used to spend a lot of time looking back through photos, or I'd try to, curate how my year was in photos and videos, and, like all the cool YouTube people do. And I thought like, oh, that's what it means to be living. And that's, I guess, the purpose of like our creativity and camera work. And nowadays I don't think that at all. It's like yeah. It reminds me of shooting film. Like, if you shift your attitude from thinking, "Oh, film is so precious. I only have these rolls. I better be very careful about what I choose to record with them." Which is like, yeah, but at the same time, you don't have to keep that film after you've shot it. And maybe that's wasteful, but whatever. How else are you going to grow and learn if you don't make mistakes? Sorry, in my head, that's a cool metaphor for what I'm talking about, and it probably doesn't make any sense to you if you're listening. But uh, I think that ties in with that justifying, using resources and being efficient in this like productivity obsession that we have, and this conservationism through inactivity, which I just think is wholly wrong. Like, yeah, it's so, if I'm using that film metaphor, I guess it's like for living, we shouldn't use more than we need. We can't take like frivolous trips, or you can't do this or that. It's got to be very purposeful and blah, blah, blahs. And I go, well, who the fuck knows if that trip is purposeful or not? What is a wasted trip? What is a waste of resource? Like, who knows? Like, it's, as far as I can tell, it just means it hasn't been used in the way someone else would use it. And I go, that's fantastic, but maybe we're all trying to do different things. We're not all trying to do the same thing. Because like the way I would use concrete is completely different than the way an engineer would use concrete, which is completely different than the way a psychopath would use concrete. Like, right, wrong, no, it just is. And it's given me a lot of freedom. Because I find it's funny sometimes on my jobs how much people think they're inconveniencing, or like, oh, we're taking too many pictures. And I'm like, these are just digital files. You can throw away everything you don't like. It doesn't matter. And yes, some people obsess over getting their ratio right because they build their business around time and blah, blah, blahs. And I go, I don't know. I'm not there. I don't care. Like, I'm still in this place of having to constantly make a lot of mistakes and make a lot of bad things so I can find what's good. And I don't know how long I'll be here, but I think it's fine. And I don't think it's a space that we should grow out of as people. I think we should always be living in that space of feeling like it's okay to make lots of mistakes and learn from them and be proud of them. I think it's the problem comes when we shame ourselves and others for making mistakes. And especially when it comes to creativity, that shame can be a really big block. Like, it's, yeah, but it comes from comparison. I think something I did a lot in my 20s was comparing, where I was to others. And I would do this as a kid too, right? Like, who has, what cool shoes, or who doesn't, who can afford the nice, instruments or equipment for sports, or who's got what kind of car. And, you're always comparing and ranking yourself against the other. And I'm really grateful that at this stage in my life I've grown so much past that. And I think there's a prioritization I have towards the freedom to sort of go and do what I want is more important to me than any symbol of status. And I say that in the sense of, oftentimes now when I see somebody who has a really expensive car or a super big, nice house, but I know they do just kind of a modest salary job. I say modest in the sense that they're no like cajillionaire. They're, they're stretching themselves really tight. And I can see that their money is going into things that make them appear to be wealthy, to have nice things. They want to be associated with their things because that's somehow important to their identity. And the older I get, the more I become obsessed with almost having less things. And whatever things I do have, I don't want them, or I don't let them become my identity. I am not my vehicle. I am not my house. The thing I enjoy about my vehicle is that I own it and it gets me from place to place. I don't have to pay somebody every month so I can have that vehicle. I can use it or not. It holds all of my equipment that I need when I need to go to work. It takes us on trips to see family. It's decently cheap to work on, so I don't have massive repair bills compared to, people with the newer cars, the fancy cars. The insurance is modest. It's just all around functional. And what I love about it is all the experiences that I get to have because that vehicle takes me places. It's fun to be in. It's got a good sound system. I can listen to music and I can listen to my podcasts, or I can turn it off and just listen to nothing, which has felt like a whole new revelation to me as well. I've driven places with nothing playing. And at first it was weird. But then I was like, oh, I guess this is like what we, used to do. My parents never listened to a lot of music in the vehicle. So growing up, if we wanted to listen to music, once we had our own CD players, we could, put on the headphones and listen to our CDs in the back of the car. But there was a lot of just quiet and looking out the windows or talking to each other, playing slug bug. I don't know. If I got really bored, I would try to read a map. I've become obsessed with allowing myself to be bored. I've noticed now how much I'm personally on my phone beyond work. How many times I'll come home and in the evening, like Chantel and I will both just sort of sit down and veg out on the phone, just flipping through shit. And it's good in one sense that I find lots of things that make me laugh. It sparks conversations with me and friends as I send them stuff. But I'm really, I guess, over the next year, making intentional moves to go back towards the experience of growing up without all of these things. We didn't really have TV growing up either. Like, we had public access channels, which was mostly garbage TV that, kids didn't want to watch. And, we lived out in a like acre amongst a bunch of berry fields. And so we just went outside and played. And we just did shit. You just kind of did whatever you felt like. You explored. You hopped on a bike and just rode around and tried to just find something interesting to do. Or you just sat with the boredom of there is nothing to do. It's part of how this little chat got started too, sitting around noticing I was flipping through my phone too much as I wait until I need to bake the next dish and go for Thanksgiving. It's snowing out and Chantel is house sitting for clients. So it was just me sitting here and cats are sleeping. And there's nothing to do, and I felt like that's wrong. My brain was frantically searching around for, I need to find something to do. There's got to be something to pay attention to, and naturally it's so easy to go towards consuming something, turning on YouTube or flipping through the Instagrams and whatevers. But making things, being productive. Not in that sense of productive, efficient, but like producing things. I have something to show for the day, something that I've done and made. I've got desserts that I made, some bread that I made yesterday. Now I've recorded this little capsule of, I guess, what it feels like to be about to turn 35. I'm starting to understand what people meant when they, like, I guess growing up, we were around a lot of older people. And so you would always hear them say they don't recognize the person in the mirror. They still feel like that young child that they were. And maybe because I just was a kid, I'm like, I don't know. I don't remember what it was like to be 5. I don't remember what it was like to be 10. I don't know what the hell I was thinking or what was going on. But I kind of get it. This, like, whatever this soul consciousness of us inside of these meat sacks, it doesn't, I guess it doesn't change as much. Maybe we kind of evolve. I don't know how that part works, but the body definitely changes. And I guess I'm kind of weird in the sense that I've always appreciated that. I like getting older. It's cool to see the changes. I kind of don't mind that I'm not as strong or flexible or fast as I was, because, like, it's kind of nice to slow down and chill out. maybe I'm just getting lazier. I don't know. It's different, and it just is. We had this there was this client in front of the camera the other week who just could not take a good photo because she just wanted to look 10 years younger. And I felt really sad for her because I don't want to be 10 years younger. Man, my 20s were rough, especially those early 20s, like 20 to 25. I don't know. For me, it's kind of a toss-up between that 20 to 25 or the sort of, I don't know, like 14 to 18, maybe like 15 to 18. Something in between those two kind of age ranges to me felt like some of the worst. Just in the sense of not feeling like I have a place in the world or what I want to do. In that sort of 15 to 18 for me, that was all the high school stuff. And, I did good in school just so that I could be not bothered with more stuff. Like, I didn't want to get in trouble because then you get like detention and bullshit and you have to like stay in school longer. And that was never my goal. I'm like, I want to get the fuck out of here. So I would do good so people would kind of just leave me alone and not ask me to hang around and do more shit at school. I just wanted to go live my life and be left out of that fucking place. But then you kind of realize, well, if I'm not in school, then I have to like work and make money and figure out what to do. And for someone like me who, I guess what I love about being self-employed is you have this grand illusion of freedom, right? Where you're free in the sense that you don't have a 9 to 5 and there's nobody immediately looking over your shoulder. You don't have to get drawn into like dumb meetings every week for fucking kickoffs and bullshit. Like, I'm pretty free to kind of do what I want week to week, but you're not free in the sense that you have to say yes to things to make money, And then once you say yes to those things, you do have to perform your service for your client, right? Like, and it kind of has to be on their schedule in a lot of their terms, because I'm there to serve them. And then that's when it becomes like, oh, your hours are out the window. Like, yeah, it's not 9 to 5 because it's 7 to 10. Fuck you. That's what we need to get it done. And you're like, okay. But then you can have these weeks of doing nothing. And I realized pretty early on that, the, especially US and Canada, yeah, both of them, not very conducive for that kind of person for like me, entrepreneurial. I say entrepreneurial just in the sense that I'm working for myself. I'm not like a business person. I don't want to get caught up in like thinking I'm like that. I'm purely a creative. I learned the business just so I can like do my creative shit and be behind the camera. That's all I concern myself with on the business front. And anyways, I realized that going through the school system, the college system, all of that, it just wants you to be a worker. You're going to be hired by somebody else to do a very monotonous task over and over. And if you do good at that task, they'll give you more money and make you oversee other people doing said monotonous task. And that's just not what I ever wanted to do. In the US, there's a like, I think it's a maniacally insane work ethic. People in the US just like don't stop working. It was something through my 20s I noticed I had less and less in common with a lot of my friends and family in the States because I couldn't understand why everything was wrapped up in work. And there was this pride in how much you work. And it makes me kind of sickly because it again ties into, well, like if I don't work or have job, then what's purpose? Why am I here? I'm like, I don't know. Why are any of us here? That's a fucking deep ass question. And I think the best way to answer that is to like go do fun shit. Why are you here? Who cares? We are here. That's the point. What do you want to do now? Just want to work? That's silly to me. Don't understand it. So I guess it was necessary for me to find a way to do, said work, but something that I enjoy and I can find, that I can do both as a hobby and an artistry, but then there's another version of it that I can do for work, so to say. Because there's a point when you realize no client is really going to pay you to do the fun, creative, cool, wacky, weird shit that you want to try doing with a camera. Whether it be a story you want to tell or some kind of a photograph you want to create or an adventure, blah, blah, blah. Like, you have to come up with that. And no one's really going to call you up and say, hey, here's that dream job where you can just do that super creative thing you've always wanted to do. Maybe you get something close, but it's not really happening, right? Like, there's a specific thing people want you to do for work. So you do that thing. But you got to separate it. I totally lost my train of thought where I'm going there, but all that to say, I think early on in my journey with this, like working for myself, even throughout the props work where, doing that job, you're an employee, but it's still very much an entrepreneurial type experience because the company doesn't hire you and say like, you're going to work for years here and like do props here. You're a day call, like, or a day hire. I forget what they call that in the contract, but like they can fire you at any time for any reason. And like once the show is over, like you better know whoever's doing the next shows, because that's where the next job is. There are all these like LLC shells that pop up for each show. So there's not really continuity. It's just project to project to project. They're just longer term projects. And I think I've lived outside of that sort of corporate salary thing for so long that, now I guess my rhythm of life feels very normal. And, I had this short time where I was working at a Long and McQuaid before we moved to Calgary. So I was mentally fried with the props work and just couldn't really get started on the camera stuff, like on my freelance photo and video work in Langley. So I was just hanging out at the Long and McQuaid working there because I thought it'd be fun to try something more routine. And it was close to home, so close to home, more routine, hanging out with music people and instruments, and it was good. But I could tell the grind of that monotony will kill me faster than anything else in this world. I think I was there for, not even 6 months. It's like 4 months, 2 months, I don't know. But I was so dead. It was really quick how much I did not look forward to going to work, because I realized it was so much of the same. And even, when you start out and you're trying to be all eager and you're going a little over the top, and you're like, yeah, I'll go up, I'll fix those light bulbs, I'll straighten up all the stuff on the shelves and this and that and whatever. And oh, good. And someone notices and they say, good job there. You feel good. And you're like, yeah, I'm doing something good. And then you realize that's just every day. And you're like, oh, this doesn't change. And even once you become, if you want to go up the ladder in that kind of a world, they'd have like the, regional supervisor guy come in, and that even felt like a joke to me. It was, it's like, oh, like the prime minister's visiting. This important person is coming and we got to make everything look good. And that person just sort of comes in and they go, yeah, store, cool, you guys, great, and leave. And I'm like, what? I don't want to do that either. Like, what a ridiculous thing to have to do. That guy's got to bounce all over the province, like checking in to make sure all the stuff is straight on the shelves and the people are happy and whatever. I'm like, oh. Anyway, sorry, that little rant. That it helped me understand that I did make a good choice in doing what I'm doing. It felt like there was no other option, and that just sort of reaffirmed that I followed the right instinct in doing this. Because I just quickly realized how much that kind of salary, very traditional corporate life will, like I said, just kill me. It will kill me. Because it's a bit terrifying doing this. Like when we moved out here to Calgary, we had no jobs lined up. I have a cousin in Airdrie who works in roofing, like commercial roofing, a industry that I have zero knowledge, experience, expertise, or desire to be in. So there was nothing except a feeling that this would be a good place to come to. And the first few years, definitely the first 2 years, I had I guess everything in front of me said this was the wrong move, because, it's hard to start over in a new town. Like, I have no connections here. I'm having to reach out and be like, hi, I'm this guy who just moved here and you should trust and hire me with your important projects. Like, it doesn't just happen. And you forget that. But I still had this driving feeling of like, no, I'm in the right place. And the right things are beginning to happen, even though it looks like there is nothing happening. And I remember there was one August when we were here, I think it was the first year that we were here, that I literally had zero anything happening. And a lot of July had been the same. And that one was tough. I think that was probably the only time, I guess, on this journey in the career side of life, at least, that I felt like, what am I doing? I made all the wrong decisions. I should sell everything and like find a way to suck it up in a quote normal job. And I'm really glad that I was able to move through that. And I think there's something about that experience in my 20s of having done that and like moving to Vancouver and starting up in the prop stuff and following a feeling. It's like nobody in my family, well, in my immediate family, nobody is like in the creative, self-employed space. You know, they've all had traditional jobs. You know, dad worked government jobs, mom worked in medicine. You know, brother went down that same sort of government job path. And I'm like this outlier that was like, I'm going to just like try doing my own thing. And I don't really know. I don't have a plan, but I just have these feelings and instincts that I need to follow. And I guess in my 20s, that following that instinct and stuff, it felt a bit more like, what would I say? Not quite arrogance, but something close to that. It was almost like, no, it'll work out. Kind of like an arrogant optimism. And I don't know, maybe that's like a US thing where it's just like, I don't know, but I feel like it's gonna be fine and I'm gonna do this. And people are always like, well, how are you gonna pay for that? Or how are you gonna start? And it's like, I don't fucking know, man, but like other people have done it, so there's gotta be a way. Like, I guess that was kind of the attitude, right? Of like, I don't know how people get working in film, but like there's a bunch of people working in film, so it's not like you can't do it. Fuck, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, you just figure it out, and I don't think any amount of pre-planning and stuff really does that or like makes it. I don't know. I feel like anytime I make plans, they kind of get thrown out the window pretty early on because things just don't go according to plan. So it's easier to just follow instinct. And then now, I guess moving forward to 30s and, you know, doing a similar thing by just dropping life in Vancouver and coming to Calgary with no plan. It was like, it wasn't quite the same arrogant optimism, but there's, I guess, that feeling of following my instinct has transformed into or just say a stable confidence. There's a lot of worry and concern. There's like, oh yeah, what if things don't work out? Like, okay, let's, yeah, make sure we have some plans if, you know, for how we're going to handle that. They don't have to be concrete, but it's just like, am I willing to, you know, take a job at Tim Hortons or go back to a Long and McQuaid or try some schooling to do something else? Am I open to those paths? Am I willing to do that? Yes. Okay, great. Then that means we can move forward in trying the big scary thing. Because if it doesn't work out, if that's the worst that I have to do is pivot back to like, oh, I guess I'll find like, yeah, a Long and McQuaid or I don't know, a Value Village or a fucking whatever. Just, you can find jobs anywhere, right? It's just, am I willing to go do those jobs and admit some defeat and saying, oh, that didn't work out? If the answer is yes, then like most of the hard work is done. Because you already don't care if it doesn't work out. And then I think you can make more clear and confident decisions from that space. And I think that's what's felt different now in my 30s compared to my 20s is there's this radical acceptance that I've been doing things so different for so long that it doesn't matter to me. I don't see that, you know, quote, status slip that people seem to see if they get fired from their job and they have to do something kind of mundane and ordinary to get by. It can be seen as this like failure. And there's a younger part of me in high school that, like a high school version of me, that would have seen that too. You know, I would be terrified to be like, oh no, I can't like get fired from a props job and go to working minimum wage at a, you know, at a fast food hut in the mall. And part of me now is like, I actually don't give a fuck. And maybe it would be kind of fun to just do that job in the mall. Cause like, I haven't done it. Like there's this like fearlessness that comes with admitting you can do the thing that you think is failure. I think that's like where this crazy fearlessness comes, but I think it expresses itself in a stable confidence of me knowing this is what my instinct is telling me. These are the things that, when I quiet my mind and try to align my heart with my mind and that instinct, it's telling me to go this way. And I think because it's led me in all the right directions so far, I have less and less reasons to doubt them as the years go by, which is a really cool and fun thing that, man, I guess like my younger self would have envied a lot and aspired to. And it's cool to, I guess, start becoming the person that your younger self aspired to be and would look up to. Like, it's cool. I really, during like the COVID and the chemo time, had that realization that I was becoming and accomplishing all of the things that my younger self said I would do. And I don't know if it weren't for that moment, I don't know if I would have seen that. And I definitely wouldn't be here today doing what I'm doing. I don't know where I would be, and sometimes I wonder about that, if I would still be scratching away on movie sets. Maybe I would be making my own stuff. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe. Who knows? We could play the maybe game all day, but that's where I'm at. And I guess that younger self too also spent a lot of time looking forward, never really satisfied in being where I was. There was always a next place to be, a next step, a next thing to be onto. And part of me now sees that, but I'm also so very content just being here. Because I guess going back to that feeling that older people would tell me of them not recognizing the old self in the mirror. Like what's looking back at me? That's not me. I feel how I always felt. And I think that's the power of this moment. Like I guess we're taught and we talk about time in this very linear thing. Your life is this history. It's your story. There's a timeline. It's all the things that happened to you and the things that, maybe will happen. We, plot it out in this very linear thing, but, the experience of life is the same in the sense that it's just right now. That's what we're doing. Like right now, I'm sitting alone with this stream of consciousness talking. That's life. You're listening to it. That's life. And this experience, I guess, hasn't changed. It's everything around has changed. But this experience, this moment, this life, that hasn't changed. The world's changed. Culture's changed. Good, bad, I don't know. It doesn't matter. It just is. Because that's what it is. And I can choose what this moment is. I can conjure up any emotion that I want to feel. I could go somewhere. I could stay put. I could make something. I could consume something. I could call someone. I could go for a walk. I could watch the snowfall. I could talk to the cat like an insane person. Like, in the moment, there's endless potential. And I guess I wish a younger version of me would have realized that early. But decades from now, I'll be grateful that at this moment I realize that at least. And that right now I'm a younger version of some older self. There was some recent quote, I forget whatever it was, but about the average life expectancy, I guess, in the US and Canada. It's only like in the 70s or 80s. And someone pointed out that, that makes midlife 35, 40. I think so many times we think of it as 50, like that nice round, people live 100 years, 50. But, if the average life only goes to 75, 80, then yeah, I'm smack dab in the middle. And that's crazy to think about. Like, even if I live a whole other life that I've lived, I could still live more than like double this life. I don't know that this math makes sense to anyone but me, but it's a strange sensation. On one hand, it can feel like there's so little time. And on the other hand, I'm like, damn, it can feel like it took a lot of fucking years to just get right here. So it's still going to feel like a lot of fucking years to get up there. The fuck. I don't know. But anyways, those are my Thanksgiving Day ramblings, and thanks for listening. I hope maybe there's some insight there, and to my future self, maybe this makes you laugh and helps you through something too.